All right, it looks like we're live. So now I'm gonna wait. I see tons of you guys in here. Oh my gosh, the comments are going super fast. I am so incredibly excited for today's class. So thank you again for having me, Catherine. I was at the last SCT event and I was teaching kind of a smaller class. And so tonight is going to be a longer 90-minute class, and I'm just so excited to sit down and spend the time with you guys. The comments are flying by. So I really appreciate all of the support. The live terrifies me just a little bit, so I'm glad you guys are all with me and we can sit down and craft together. So there's a couple of things I wanted to cover before I got started in tonight's class. And my class, after talking with Catherine, is really going to be all about different techniques. I love ink, I love pastes and different mediums like that. And so this was going to be a ton of fun for me to just teach you guys a bunch of amazing techniques. And so I'm going to spend tonight's evening with you really teaching these techniques. And of course, we're going to be creating 3 or 4 different cards depending on how much time we have. But what I want you guys to really take away with this is that you are going to walk away with a bunch of new things that you learned, and hopefully you can create lots of different cards with it, which I'm excited for you guys to try these techniques, maybe step outside your comfort zone if you're not used to doing sort of things like this, and really walk away with lots of new things that you've learned. And also Ranger really filled this kit full of supplies, and so you're also gonna walk away with lots of other things you can create with the stuff you have inside this kit. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm gonna start this too to make sure that nothing turns off on us. And let's flip down to my work surface and get started. I see lots of friends in here. Hey Gina, hey Kathy, thank you so much. And also Ranger is gonna be in the chat as well, answering some questions if you guys have them. Of course, I'll answer some things as well, but they're gonna be in here too. All right. So let's flip down to our work surface. Now with homework, the homework was pretty easy. I've got a couple different die cuts here. I told you guys to have 2 of these floral die cuts done and then 1 of the little cactus. And we haven't done any stamping on it, so don't worry. And I've also cut out a couple extras just in case if I mess up, then we got some extras on the side. And also, I just had you guys stamp down some sentiments and cut them out. These were from the stamp set and the die set. But if you didn't do any of this homework, just do it right before we do the step, and that's totally fine. I know some of you guys said you're going to be eating dinner at this time too, so if you're eating along with me, you can always watch after the fact as well. All right, so those are kind of the things that we wanted to have ready. And for this first technique, I'm going to pull in 1 of the floral die cuts and 1 of the cactus dies, because we're going to stamp on these, and then we're going to do a fun stamping technique as well. All right, so let's jump into the stamp set. We're going to be using this large solid cactus and the leaves first as well. Hey, Jennifer. So I'm going to peel these right out of the stamp set. And we're just going to add them onto acrylic blocks. I see lots of you guys are cooking dinner or eating, so that's a lot of fun as well. Let us know what you're eating in the chat. All right, so I'll apply these down to acrylic blocks. And I see lots of you guys thanking Ranger as well. Yeah, they were so awesome and super generous with, giving so much inside of this kit. And what I think is so cool about it is I'm going to show you like a little sampler of what you could do with stamping foam and what you could do with Lunar paste. But really, there are so many endless techniques as well that you can use along with the supplies that we gave you. So that's what I'm excited to see, is really what you guys take along, afterwards as well, what you create with this stuff. So we're going to jump into some of the inks that we have in here. Like I said as well, the inks don't really matter. Like, depending on whatever inks you have at home, use what you guys have. Here, I'm just using some greens. If you want to follow along and you have my inks, I'm going to use Later Gator and a little bit of Viper. And I'm just going to ink up the stamp using the lightest green first. And then you could also go in with darker greens. I'm also going to grab in a little bit of fake plant. And so for this one, I'm just going to add a little bit of darker green kind of around the edges. So this will be our first stamping technique. This one's pretty simple. You guys probably have done this before, but I do this all the time just to give some depth and dimension to an image. All right, and then I'm going to stamp directly onto the die cut. Now, if you struggle with this, using a MISTI might be helpful. I'm gonna put my head right above it just to make sure I get it nice and lined up. And the reason why I'm stamping onto the die cut and I've cut it out first is because there's little florals in here and they sort of fit into place. And so the die cut is going to act as sort of a guide for our stamping. All right, so we've got that perfectly aligned. We've stamped that down. And then I'm going to set this off to the side. Inside of the booklet, because we have this wonderful booklet that we have here, I explained them in separate steps. So I did this stamping, in separate steps for each card. But tonight I'm going to do it all at once, just because the next stamping technique that we're going to do to fill in the floral areas is a little bit more tedious, so we're going to do it right at once. Jennifer's hilarious. She says, wait, his hair isn't gray like mine. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this cactus, applying a little bit of green. And then I'll throw in a little bit of viper as well, which is this great olive green color, which I think is going to look so awesome with this cactus. And so I'm just going in, and really when it comes to this technique, I'm going to show you guys on the side here because sometimes it's hard to show on screen. So I'm just going to go in with my ink pad, and I'm kind of going at an angle like this to kind of roll the ink onto the edge, and you can see there's a little bit of a different tone. But that's how you don't get like a harsh mark, is just by rolling and using the edge of your ink pad. So I'll do it a little bit at the bottom there, and then I'll do it a little bit at the top. All right. Yeah, Viper is such a great color. It's such a great olive green. I see lots of you guys talking about this kit. It's so awesome. So yeah, thank you, Ranger. Thank you, Spellbinders. Spellbinders is super cool too. We recently partnered with them to create the dies. So I was super excited to bring you guys dies in this kit so that you can save some time. And so instead of having to fussy cut out these images, having the dies from Spellbinders is really super awesome. All right, and so there we have our cactus stamped down as well. And like I said, whatever green inks you have, that was just a pretty basic stamping technique, so anything will work for that. And we really have some beautiful two-tone stamping done, which gives you lots of shading and depth and dimension onto the image. So I'm gonna set these off to the side quickly, and then we're gonna move into the next stamping technique. Now this next one, it's going to be a little bit messier, so this is where we're gonna have to step out of our comfort zone. I'm going to grab an acrylic block, or if you're working on a craft sheet, that's perfect for you. If you have a piece of acetate off to the side, that can be really great as well, because we're going to be using some Lunar paste. All right, and let me know if I need to slow down or if I'm going at a good pace. It's been a while since I've taught live like this. It's a lot of fun. I see all your comments. You guys are so sweet. All right, so I'm going to go in using Game Over. Now, Lunar paste is kind of paint-like. It's a little bit of a thinner consistency. Like if you've used normal texture paste, it's a little bit thinner than that. It spreads really easily, and you can see it's got kind of a buttery whipped consistency to it, which I really like. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of Lunar paste for this technique, and a little bit goes a really long way. And I'm just spreading this out, and I think you guys got a palette knife and the paste tool set in your kit too. So like I said, Ranger was so awesome with everything they gave. And I'm just going to spread this nice and thin on the surface, and my acrylic block is acting as sort of a palette. You guys are so sweet. And so I'm going to wipe that off, and you can always apply more. So a little bit goes a long way with this. And then I'm going to go in and grab the foam as well, because you guys got some blending foams inside your kit. And I think you got a handle too, even. We were kind of going back and forth at what we can include, and they just decided to include everything. So I think you've got a handle and a blending foam as well. And so these foams are really great for applying down your ink onto your stamps, or your Lunar paste onto your stamps. And so here I'm going to go in with the florals. So grab this solid floral images. I know you guys love to kind of know exactly what we're using. So this floral, and then this last one here. And I definitely should have like applied the florals down before I did this, but it won't dry too fast on us. And what I'm gonna do is just line these florals up on top of our image here. All right, and just make sure they're nice and lined up. They should fit kind of in these areas, and this is why we did our die cutting first, because it's really easy to know how these line up. So just place them into place. And I'm doing all three of them at once. And if it's not perfect, don't worry. Oh, actually, wrong floral, wrong one. You're gonna want this little one up here, not this one. That one goes with the cactus. All right. And then I'm going to go up here and line this one up. And like I said, if they're not perfect, that's totally okay. But lining all three up at once is going to be really great for stamping. So line that up, and then place them onto our acrylic block. And now we can stamp all three of these images at once. So that really helps with alignment. If you want to do each individual one at a time, you totally can, but all three makes it really easy to stamp it in one go and then stamp it all down. All right. Yeah, Catherine said Ranger and I worked together to make sure we had all the fun things. Yes. I kind of gave some suggestions and then they kind of ran with the ideas and really gave you everything that I suggested, which was awesome. You know, sometimes you're able to do like one or two things and really feature a couple, but we got a lot in here. All right, so once I've applied a little bit of paste down, now a little bit goes a long way with this, all right? You don't want globs on your blending tool. Look how much I have there. It's not too much and it kind of seeps into the blending foam, which is really great. That's why we applied it kind of thin across the surface like this, so that we're able to tap it onto the stamps. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and lightly tap it onto the stamps. And you can see it's going to give us great coverage across that surface. I'm going to tap onto that littler flower, and then I'll tap onto this flower here. And if you need to go back in to the lunar paste, you totally can. And then apply it down onto your stamp. And it should look something like this. And now this is where we're going to go a little bit fast, all right? So we're going to take our image, line them up. And again, just look over top. You don't need to be absolutely perfect, and then stamp it down. And give it some good pressure. I'll slow down a little bit. I see some comments saying slow down. I totally will. All right, then stamp it down. And when you do that stamping, you want to give good pressure, but then you want to pull off pretty fast, all right? So if you don't pull off fast enough, the lunar paste can start drying and like rip up your paper, which you don't want, okay? So once you got that stamped down, you feel like you've given some good pressure, then lift off the surface. And there we have our first stamped image. And I think you guys can see a little bit of that glow already. And then as that lunar paste starts to dry a little bit more, it will become even shinier and give some great, beautiful shine on your stamping. How fun is that? Yes, lots of you guys are saying you don't know that you could put the paste onto stamps. You totally can. And it gives such a great effect. Okay? And then I'm going to clean off these stamps pretty quickly. Okay? And to do that, you can go in with some paper towel and wipe it off. One thing that I love to do, I know Jennifer McGuire showed you that the stamp scrubber. I think that would work pretty well with this as well. But I'm going to use this little scrubby tool and just a little bit of water and just go in and scrub the surface of these stamps. Okay, because it's going to get all of the lunar paste out of those little details and help remove that. Okay, so once we've got that done, we can then just tap off our stamps and they should be pretty nice and clean. And of course, you could always take them underneath a sink if you want to, and just kind of wipe them off. But I'm just at my desk here, so I can't necessarily do that. But any cleaner like that would really help. Okay. All right. Now next, we're going to go in with this little flower, the one that I accidentally picked up earlier. This one's going to be for the cactus. And so this is why we did both stamping at one time, so that we could do sort of this technique next and not have the lunar paste dry out on us, right? So we're going to bring in the cactus, put this onto your acrylic block. Yep, that was just water. Yep, to clean it off, I just used a little bit of water. Now my stamps already had some lunar paste on it from when I tested it out. Like if there's a little bit of lunar paste on the side, no need to worry, but just kind of clean that surface off for sure, so that when you use ink next time, it doesn't really resist it. And then some of you guys are talking about this. It can be washed and used over and over again, and I'm going to show you guys how to wash it. But first, we're going to do some stamping on this. All right. If the lunar paste dries on your stamp, what's the easiest way to clean it off? I don't really know. I mean, I've had some residual lunar paste on stencils and stamps before. I just use kind of a scrubber tool, and that will help clean it off. All right. And then this one's even easier to line up. Just kind of line it into those grooves and stamp it down. Again, give it some good pressure down and then up. And there we go. You can see it was just a little bit off, but like handmade, not Hallmark, right? But how cool is that? And it gives some beautiful shine. Check that out. So yes, as a rule of thumb, you want to clean this off before it dries on your stamp surfaces. So a little bit of water will help to clean these off. If you don't, yeah, water and a toothbrush works well to clean stamps, especially if you leave it dry on there. I don't know exactly if it's going to make it toast. I've had stencils where it comes off pretty well, but you're going to have to really scrub. So I would recommend cleaning them off pretty quickly once you're done using it. So again, just a little bit of water. Here I'm just going to use my microfiber cloth and just go in here and wipe it off. And it does a pretty great job at getting into those details and cleaning, right? How cool is that? So we're gonna set these off to the side to let them dry for 1 second. And as these dry, like that's pretty much dry already, because when you apply your lunar paste so thin like that, it dries super quickly. All right. So I'm gonna set these off to the side really quickly. Now, before I let this go to waste, I told you guys I was really teaching techniques tonight, and I wanted to show you, yes, that gives you a great result when you stamp it down onto white cardstock, but I also wanna quickly show how it's gonna look when you stamp it on black cardstock. So I'm just gonna quickly go in with another stamp, but I wanted to show you guys like really how you can play with these so that, you know, next time you guys go out crafting, you can really test it out. All right, so this wasn't in your kit, so just kind of watch this part. I'm gonna do it pretty quickly so that it doesn't take up much time, but I just wanted to show how it looked on a dark color cardstock. So again, I'm going in with my blending foam. I love these foams because it really makes it super easy. I also find that lighter tapping really helps to not get down into those grooves. So just to apply ink to the top surface of the stamp and not cover all the details. And you wanna work pretty fast when you're using that lunar paste. All right, because like I said, you don't want it to dry, you don't want it to pull up your cardstock. So just to get some texture. And this stamp was from our most recent release. We released it on March 17th. So if you guys want to check that out afterwards, it's on the Ranger website. And I just want to show you guys. It's called Funky Chevron, and it's a fun solid stamp to give some great texture. And this one is a pull apart stamp too. So if you guys aren't familiar with my line, some of the background stamps peel out, which means you can kind of build a background with several different colors. So here you can use the chevron to build several different colors. Again, you want to peel it up pretty quickly, but check that out. And as this dries, the shine becomes more and more intense. And you really can have fun with lots of different colors. So of course, we gave you Game Over. I know last class, if you guys took that one as well, we gave you, I think it was Clear Skies, but check that out. So you can really build up a layer of this color on top of dark cardstock, and it shines. So it's cool that you can stamp it on white and get that shine, but it's even more stunning to stamp it on top of black and get that beautiful effect. And it's already dry too, so check that out. Okay, now I'm gonna quickly run in and wipe this off. So like I was talking about earlier, tonight's really all about the techniques and then creating the finished cards as well, but really learning these new techniques so that once you guys are done with this class, you'll be able to take these new supplies after creating these cards and create even more with them, right? All right, so I'll put that stamp away. And then if you want to, you can clean it off on like another piece of cardstock. So if you've got this on your surface, you can spray it down with water and dip your cardstock into it. Or you could take it on another piece of cardstock. And since I have it on an acrylic block, I'm just going to smear it off because this is going to create a great surface that we can die cut out of. Because once it dries, it'll become beautiful and shiny. Check that out. I love it. And then that's just going to be another background that we can use. So cool. All right, and then I'm gonna clean this off with some water. Okay, so I see a couple questions in the chat. So while I'm cleaning this up, I'll answer some of the questions. Does the paste dry if the jar is closed? It really depends on your climate, all right? So I never promise anything. I'm never gonna, someone emailed me and they were like, I'm in Florida and I wanna make sure that it's not gonna dry out because all of her other pastes do. So I'm not gonna say that in any climate it's not gonna dry out. I've had my samples for a long time, and I'm in Wisconsin. I've had my samples for a long time, and it hasn't dried out. So it just really depends on your climate. I find that lunar pastes have lasted a lot longer than other pastes in my craft room, so that's something for it. But if you are in a warmer climate where they dry a lot quicker, you might want to put press and seal inside your jar and then seal it and make sure that it's nice and tight so that you know, no air gets inside of there, and that can really help. All right. So now I want to show you how to clean this out. You can rip this foam off and pull it underneath the sink and wash it out. Another thing that I like to do to clean it out, and I'm running low on paper towel, but another thing that you need to do or could do is just go in with a little bit of water. I spray this down and then I can just tap it off until all that red disappears. And once it turns back to almost white, like it'll be a little bit stained, but once it turns back to almost white, then it'll be ready to use for next time. If you leave this just to dry in here, it can sometimes get a little bit hard and firm, but that could be kind of cool. Jennifer McGuire did a technique where she used the firmer foam because it dried a little bit in there, and then she went over like an embossed background, and because it's firmer, it kind of hits just the top raised surfaces and makes them shine. So that could be fun too, but I like to clean them out for next time that I use it. All right, so let's move into the next technique now. Is everyone good with their lunar paste? I thought that was kind of fun to show you guys some different options to do with it for after the class when you stamp with it. Super cool to get that shine. All right, so let's move into the next step. I gotta make sure I know where I place everything so that I can come back to it later. I cleaned up today though, so it should be pretty easy to find everything in here. So for the next step, we're gonna be creating a background for our first card with the florals. So for this, we're gonna use stamping foam. I know that in your kit, you guys got a piece of stamping foam, and it's right next to me. I was wondering where I put it. So we gave you this time a piece of the larger stamping foam, and this covers an A2 size card really beautifully. It's got 2 pieces inside of this kit, but there are lots of different packs of stamping foam. I think we have one with a heart, one with a circle, some smaller stamping foams, and this larger one to cover a whole card. I really like this one because, like I said, it covers a whole card, so you're easily able to create a background for a focal point that you've created, which I think is so much fun. So this piece I've already used. You can use both sides of it. You can use the edges of it, which we'll do later if we have enough time. So really super fun. And then you're gonna need a texture. In this class, I used the Moroccan tile background stamp. This one is super fun. It was, again, in our latest release, but you could also use any texture from your craft room. So this one happens to be a placemat that can be really fun for texture. I would choose something that sort of gives a geometric or repeated design, not necessarily a focal point. So these are kind of great backgrounds. So if you have sort of a stamp from another kit that was in Crop and Create, that can be so much fun. If you have an embossing folder, that could be fun. A die, there's lots of different options in here. So go through your crafting stash and see if you guys can find a background, or your craft room and see if you can find something with a really fun texture that you can use with the stamping foam. All right. And I think I can slow down because we've got until... Yeah, I'm not going to say the time because we're all in different time zones, so I don't want to confuse anybody, but we've got quite a bit of time left, so I can go a little bit slower for you guys. All right, so I'm going to place this down on my surface. With any texture that you have, you want to have your texture ready because we're going to go pretty fast once we do the heating. So, make sure to get your texture ready because once we've heated it, it's go time, okay? Now, when it comes to using this larger stamping foam, I like to always encourage everyone to stand up. So I'm going to be standing when I do this because it's going to help give lots of pressure into here. Because we've used the smaller stamping foam before, and that one's pretty easy to press down because it's a smaller surface area. But because this has a larger surface area, you're going to need to apply more pressure on the surface in order to get it to really transfer and get a great image. All right? So I'm going to go in here, standing up still. I'm going to go in with my heat tool. You can use any sort of heat tool. I've got the Ranger heated craft tool. You can use an embossing gun as well. With any heat tool, I recommend that you keep the heat tool moving. So just make sure you keep it moving around the surface, and then don't put it too close because it could burn it. I know some embossing heat tools are a little bit hotter, so just make sure to keep them moving as well. Yep, you can use a detail die. Totally, it's not going to cut the embossing, or it's not going to cut the stamping foam, so don't worry about that. All right, so I'm going to go in here, get my texture ready, and I'm going to start heating up this stamping foam. I apologize for going fast. I'll slow down for sure. All right, so I'm gonna heat this, keep the heat tool moving for about 15 to 20 seconds and just move it around the surface. Now the reason why I like this Ranger heat tool is just because I feel like it has a wider mouth to the heat tool, so it's going to give you a more dispersed heat rather than more of a focused heat. But anything works, just make sure to keep your heat tool moving so that it stays pretty evenly heated. All right. And once we've done that, we're going to really quickly flip it down, and I'm just going to grab my hand. You can see my fists here. I'm using one fist and a hand, and I'm just going to press it down here and kind of keep my hands moving to get pressure all over the surface, okay? Now, once we've stamped that, you're going to lift it off. Now, don't get too disappointed, okay? Because this is a really large surface. So sometimes it can be hard to get as even of an image all the way across, but just know that even with like these edges, you can still see that design there. that's still gonna ink really well, okay? So don't be discouraged if you are heating this up and it looks sort of like mine where it's a little bit flat in some areas. You're totally fine, okay? Now, if you want to, if you don't think you got a great image the first time, you can always reheat it. It's going to flatten out and then you can press it back into the image, okay? So you should be good with this. I'm gonna also do the other side as well, okay? And I'm gonna show you guys how to use it with a placemat too, because I think it's kind of cool to show you guys two different textures and really how it works with anything in your craft room. So like I said, you could use both sides. Okay, I'm gonna heat this up for about 15 to 20 seconds. Okay, and then I'm going to quickly press it in. Now, always say you want to go pretty quickly, okay? So you don't want to do laundry, you don't want to walk the dog in between. You want to make sure that once you've done heating that, you put down your heat tool really quickly and then you go right into giving this some good pressure, especially because it's that larger surface area. It's going to take more pressure to get your image to transfer. Now, again, it's a little bit flatter in some areas. Don't worry about it, okay? Because this will still, once you get the ink on there, you'll see that it's great. Now, if you ink this up and you're like, I don't like it in some areas, then you could redo it. But I would encourage you guys to ink it up even if you've got some areas where you don't think that it's stamped as well. Okay? All right, yes, Garrett says, I love the video where you found things around your house to use with the stamping foam. Yeah, there's so many fun things you could do with it. So afterwards, on YouTube, if you look up just stamping foam, you can find videos from me and from other creators where we just kind of go in and create lots of things with this, because you can use any sort of texture, okay? If you heat it longer, will it pick up the image better? So basically with this stamping foam, it's a little bit larger, so like this is really what you're gonna get. You could also use an acrylic block. I have this large acrylic block. You could use anything, but this one was designed to go along with it. You could tape it down to the surface, and the acrylic block might help you to get a more even pressure because it's that solid surface. But use anything. Like if you guys have something that's hard and kind of got a great surface area like this, that could be helpful to just tape down if you're struggling with it. Yes. Yep, you can remove the impression of the stamping foam by just heating it back again and it'll flatten back out. All right, so to ink this up, I'm going to use two different inks. I'm going to use a light blue and a dark blue. Here I'm using Breakup Blue and No Diving. I love the color names. This one was so much fun. But you could use any sort of inks that you have in your stash. All right, so I'm going to start out with the lightest color first, and I'm just going to use this really lightly across the surface. And I find that whenever I ink my stamp up, you want to kind of ink in a circular motion like this, and instead of tapping, because this is what it looks like when you tap, you basically get nothing. I don't know why, I don't know the science behind it, but whenever we first designed stamping foam, I figured out that doing this swiping method gives you a lot more of an ink coverage, okay? So grab whatever ink pads you have and sort of give a lighter pressure and just swipe across the surface like this in a circular motion. And you can see that beautiful inked background. And you can see even where it was a little bit lower in the design, totally fine. It still inks up perfectly. You really only need a little bit of texture in order for this stamping foam to work really well. Yes, Laura from Scrapper.com, she says, we love using the stamping foam with you. Yeah, on Scrapper.com, we created a really fun video using the stamping foam together. So it was a lot of fun. So there's some great videos out there showing how to use the stamping foam as well. So if you want lots of ideas for different textures you can use, it's really cool. Okay, so next I'm going to go in using No Diving. Now this is just like an idea. If you want to add a little bit more dimension to it, you totally could just leave it at one color of ink if you want to, or you could do stripes of color across the surface. I'm going to go in here with No Diving, which is a little bit darker. And what I like to do with this is just go right around the edge. So similar to how we did that stamping earlier with the shading, I'm gonna go kind of at an angle with the ink pad and just go right around the edge of the surface. And this is going to give it some great depth, some great dimension to it. And I like it because it leaves the center lighter, which is going to give you a great area for a spotlight, all right? Which is going to really spotlight that flower that we add to it later, okay? So once that's done, now you could go in here with a blending tool again. This one's pretty clean by now, but you guys have lots of blending tools in your kit, and you could just tap in between if you want to really make sure that it's nice and smooth if you see any harsh marks, okay? And then to stamp this down, what I recommend is just going in with a spray bottle and then lightly misting. So I'm just going to lightly mist the surface. I did it 3 times, and you can see it was just a tiny little mist. It wasn't globs of water. If you do too much water, it's going to give you kind of a more watercolor look, which is fine, but you're going to lose a little bit of detail. So if you just want it to help transfer the ink, I just spray kind of a waft of water over the top, which is going to help transfer it. Okay. And then I'm going to take my piece of cardstock. You guys should have pre-cut cardstock in your kit. This is just a piece, not the card base. And then I'm going to stamp it right down onto the surface here. And it's pretty easy to line up. It's actually bigger than the card, so you can easily stamp it down on the surface there and line it up, giving it some good pressure. And there we go. A beautiful background once it's all complete. I love that. And when this transfers, it gives you a completely different look than the background stamp originally. It reverses the image, so any area that would have stamped is actually turning kind of a white or a lighter color, which is really fun. It just gives tons of texture in the background. Now I also wanted to show you guys, well, first I'm going to clean this off. So let's clean. I'm going to go in using my rag, and I'm just going to clean it off with a little bit of water. Now, of course, depending on what ink you're using, some ink brands might stain. That's totally okay. My inks clean off really well with water, so they're going to clean off pretty easily here. But if you need to, use a stamp cleaner or something like that. But still, if it's stained, it'll still work beautifully. Like everyone says, a stain stamp is a love stamp. So it'll still work for you. All right. Yep, soap is okay. Stamp cleaner is okay. I believe like when Gina even used it, she used Windex on it. So like literally anything, rubbing alcohol might work to get some ink brands off as well. Anything that you can use to take it off. I wouldn't use acetone though, because that's like a little bit too strong. But, lots of different, like rubbing alcohol would probably work best. All right. Someone said the no diving looks darker than the picture swatches. The swatches, yeah, usually on the website, sometimes the screens make it look a little bit different. So I'm not exactly sure if the swatch is exactly right, but yeah. Okay, so let me go in quickly with another color. I just want to show you guys how this is going to look if you use a different texture in your craft room. So here, I'm going to go in just with a random color. I'm using Crown Me. Again, this one isn't going to be included in the class, but I just want to simply swipe over top and show you guys how cool this is, because the detail that it catches is really beautiful. Okay, so I'll just go in. I'm going to spray this down, and I'm just going to stamp it quickly. Super easy. Oh, great. Lots of you guys are saying that rubbing alcohol helps to take the inks off. Have you found that stamping foam, the swiping on the stamping foam works differently with a foam pad versus a felt pad? I feel like the foam pad would sink in a little bit more. So if you have foam pads, just do a lighter, like go really light with it. I've honestly never used foam pads, so I can't comment too much on that, but here's how that looks with the placemat background. You can see all of the amazing detail in there. Hopefully my camera can focus on it. But all the amazing detail with all of the little lines in there, all of those get caught on there. So check that out. It's so much fun to be able to stamp any different backgrounds. So go around your house, find a basket or find different things like that, and you're going to get some really great stamping with it. All right. So let me know, are we at a good pace, guys? Did lots of you guys finish your backgrounds? Be sure to comment and let me know, and I'll give you guys some time here to finish them as well while I do some cleaning. Okay, so there's our 2 backgrounds, and again, just remember that if you're, if you're falling a little bit behind on this, or you need to relearn some of the techniques, if you didn't love how your background came out, you can always try it again right now, or you can replay the video later and be sure to try it then as well, because we're gonna go over lots of different techniques in tonight's live. Lots of you guys are saying, yes, you love your background, you love it. You were so thrilled when you saw stamping foam in the kit. Yeah, it's so much fun. Ruth just said she's got a brick wall and she's got to try it. That's a cool idea. All right. So lots of you guys are saying that you're keeping up. It's a good pace, so that's great. I'm going to go in here and again, just spray it down with some water to clean it off. And I'll just clean it off the surface. Yep. You can use lots of different inks on it. Super cool. All right, so I want to show you guys quickly too that once you're done with the stamping foam, if you love how this turned out, you can always leave this on your stamping foam. It's totally fine to have the texture in there. It's gonna stay until you reheat it again, so you can keep that texture in there. I've got some from Christmas that I really loved, and really loved it, so I kept it in there. Now I'm gonna go in and I'm going to go in with my heat tool and just heat set this, and it's going to flatten it out and it's going to make it so you can use it over and over again. So I'm gonna go in here, heat this up, and it's going to go nice and flat. Thank you guys. Lots of you guys are saying it's a good pace. Thanks Jennifer, thanks Laura. I'm gonna go in here and you guys can see as we heat this up, it's going to go nice and flat for us. And that means we can keep using it over and over again. Now, some people ask, you know, how long it's going to last. As you heat set it, like if you do this maybe like 10 times, it's going to shrink just a tiny little bit every time. So it's just gonna get a little bit smaller, but you can keep using it over and over again. This one is completely flat, as you guys can see. The design that's still in there is just a little bit leftover ink, but it's totally going to work over and over again. It's completely flat, so you guys can use it on lots of different backgrounds. Okay, we got some questions. Can you use it on an embossing folder? Totally. It gives really great deep impressions. Embossing folders are so fun to use with it. What's the foam made of? It's just really dense foam. So it's going to be so great for getting all those textures. All right. So then I'm going to go in here and we can kind of start putting this card together already. So for this card, I've got this blue background that we've stamped down together. And then all you need to do is go in with a little bit of tape runner or liquid glue. I'm going to adhere this background down, and I'm using a top folding card. All right, we can adhere this right down. Okay, and like I said, I really love the coloring of this background. Because we made the edges darker and the center lighter, it makes it a really great place to put the focal point and have it really stand out, all right? Because the darker edges are going to really make it pop off the card. And then I'm going to go in here using a little bit of foam tape. I'm running out of foam tape. I gotta get some more. And then we can add this down to kind of pop the image up off of our card. Yay, lots of you guys are saying you love the prints that you made, you love the backgrounds. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see all of them in the gallery. It's gonna be super cool to see what you guys used for that image. I always think it's fun to not necessarily include a stamp in the kit or something in the kit to use with the stamping foam, because it's super cool to see your creativity and what you guys decided to use. So that's what I love about it. So I'm gonna adhere this pretty much in the center, right here. And again, I love how that looks popped up there, but also that nice shine that you get. I love that it's kind of a subtle shine when you stamp with it like that, but it's just so beautiful on the background. And the cool part about Lunar Paste too is once it's all nice and dry, it's not gonna come off on your hands, which I like because some shiny products come off in your hands and I don't love that. All right, and then same thing with your sentiment. You can go in using a little bit of foam tape or tape runner and just go in and apply the sentiment down onto the surface. And I'm just gonna apply it in this little area where there's kind of a divot in that floral, and it's gonna be a great spot for our sentiment. All right, so there's our first card all done. In this example, I actually went in with a little bit of ink around the edge too and just took a blending tool around the edge. So it just depends on if you want to add a little bit more depth to it. If you do, you can always shade the edge in just using a blending tool after the fact and your darker color of ink, and you're gonna get even more depth and dimension. But how fun is that? I absolutely love it. Super cool. And there's also a little circle in that set, in the stamp set. So if you want to add a different color in the center, you totally could, or you could just leave it white like that. But you want to do it? Let's add one. So I'm going to go on with an acrylic block here. And I'm going to use my yellow, which is Shooting Star. Sometimes I get a little too excited. I just move ahead of myself and don't realize it until the end. So you can always add that right after the fact. It's a really simple little stamp in that set, just to add a color in there. Thank you guys. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what you all create with this. and see all your cards in the gallery. I love it. Okay, so let's move on to the next card. And the next card project is super fun. It uses a stenciling technique. So we're going to use the Sedona Scene Maker stencil, and then we're going to put it together with the card that we used for this beautiful cactus, all right? So the cactus that we stamped earlier is going to become the focal point for this card, okay? So let's go in here and create our background. Now for the background, I'm gonna start out with a top folding card base as the background, so I'm not going to do it on a card panel. I'm going to go straight onto the card base, and we're going to pull out our stencil. So here's this Sedona Scene Maker stencil, and this one comes with all these little bits as well. They're kind of taped into each one of the images. We give you all the masks along with the stencil, which is really fun. So you've got some solid cactuses and the solid sun as well that you can use. So I keep those masks right in the back of the package, but we're just gonna be using the stencils for today's stenciling. So for this, I'm gonna set this right here so you guys can kind of see it. We're gonna be creating a background, but instead of doing like a full colorful background like this, all right, we're just gonna use some of the pieces to create a more toned down, muted background for this cactus. All right, so we can go in. I'm going to take these little mountain ranges first, and I'm going to place them sort of at the top like this. So just place that down so that this area has lots of room at the bottom there. And then we're gonna go in with a little bit of mint tape or whatever kind of low tack masking tape you guys have. And we're just going to tape it down to the surface. All right. And before we do anything else, I'm gonna tape this down to my work surface too so that it doesn't move. And then I'll tape this right down to my work surface. Now also, you wanna tape off these little cacti. And that's just gonna make sure that they don't stencil right through there, all right? Okay, so now we can go in with another one of our blending foams. So you can apply the blending foam onto your blending tool. I've got one for each color in my craft room, so I've already got one that's nice and saturated with ink, but I know that Ranger gave you guys a whole pack. So if it's your first time using the domed foam blending tools, they are really great for blending out your inks. Okay, so for this, I'm gonna use a little bit of Gur. And for the background, I'm going to start out with the Gur ink pad, and you can see it's a pretty dark brown color, all right? And what we're going to do is go in here, and instead of going right onto our surface, we're going to just tap off a little bit of excess brown ink onto the side first. And this is gonna make it a lot lighter. So of course, if you guys have lighter color of inks in your craft room, totally use them. But I wanted to show you this technique so that in case if you don't have tons of different colors in your craft room, you know that you can always go off to the side first, and then go onto the surface and start blending. And that's gonna give you sort of a lighter shade of the exact same color, okay? So that's always really helpful if you don't have tons of colors or don't have the budget to spend on a bajillion different ink colors, right? You can just use that one color and just get a much lighter layer of it by tapping off some of that excess ink to the side. But even if you do have lots of colors, the nice part about this is it's giving you the same tone of color. So it's almost like a little ombre look. Instead of going in with two completely different tones, it gives you the exact same look. But there's also lots of great like layering inks on the market as well. So if you guys have those, it can be really great to use a lighter and a darker one as well. But I wanted to show you guys just in case. Okay. And I'm only gonna go kind of down to there. These inks blend really beautifully. So if you've got my inks, you know they can blend like just so simply into that white color on your cardstock. We're going to lift up this stencil, and there we have our hills. So a really great background that we've started here. And then we're going to go in with the second stencil from the set. So this is the second stencil. It's got these beautiful cacti in it. And we're just going to lay this stencil down, kind of place it on our surface. And we're going to use these two cacti because they're gonna be on either side of our focal point, okay? And I'm going to go in here and just line these up on the surface. And then again, we can go in with our mint tape again and just tape this down on the edge. You guys are so sweet. Thank you. Kathy says you are so great at foam blending. It really is the inks. I'm gonna be completely honest. The inks really are great. I worked with the chemist at the beginning when we developed my inks, and we were like just about to produce them, and I was like, these need to blend a little bit better. So we got back into manufacturing them and really reworking the formula, and he added something in here that makes it blend a little bit better, and that's why I absolutely love them. Because blending is one of my favorite techniques to do, and so I wanted my inks to be able to blend just beautifully. Okay, so next when I go in with this Gur ink, I'm going in with full saturation, and to help get like a really dark ink, I like to go in and instead of just tapping like this onto the surface, the ink's a little bit dark so it's kind of hard to see, but instead of tapping like this, I like to put some pressure down and go side to side like this to get lots of ink onto the surface, okay? That's gonna really get you the most ink coverage. Now if you've got foam ink pads, then you could just tap because those are really light, but if you have felt like this, it's a little bit better to go side to side because you're gonna get lots of ink on the tool. And then when it comes to these sort of cacti images where they're a little bit more detailed, you can go in with a sort of pounce method and then turn your tool like this. If you go in with the normal kind of harsh blending motions, it might rip your stencil. So just go in and sort of tap this in lightly, and it's going to give you a really great dark color in those images and not ruin your stencil at all. Yes, you guys are so kind. Everyone is so kind in the chat here. Okay, so I'm just going really nice and dark into these little areas. And then once we get into kind of the larger area of the background, we can easily go back in with those blending motions and just start blending onto our surface. Everyone is saying they're loving the energy. Well, thank you guys. It's really a mix of, you know what it is? It's a mix of loving what I do. So I absolutely love what I'm talking about, but it's also like nerves as well in here. So you're getting nervous, Simon, but also love what I'm talking about. So that's the energy here. All right. I'm gonna go in here and just ink down the surface then. Oh, someone says I keep watching him hold that stamp pad over his card and I find myself holding my breath that I don't drop it. Yeah. Yep. I know a lot of people get scared about that because it's definitely happened before, or they get scared about if I'm heat embossing. Sometimes I do it over top of a whole bin of embossing powder and they get scared that I'm gonna like heat up the whole thing of embossing powder. So I get it. I'm gonna go in and just keep blending here. So lots of ink on the tool, and then you can blend down on the surface. You guys are so sweet. Okay, so you can really tell. That's what I was saying with this. Like when you go back and forth and a little bit of pressure like that, you're gonna get lots of color onto the surface, okay? So you can really see the difference that when we peel this off, you can see that dark color and that light color. Isn't that insane? Like it's just completely crazy to me that that's this one color of ink pad, and you can get either that dark color or the really light one. So use your inks like this. Like if you want to tap off to the side to get a much lighter color, or keep that dark color by just applying tons of ink onto the surface. And the really awesome part about the inks is that when you build them up like this, if you do layer after layer, it's a translucent dye-based ink, so it's going to keep layering up and give more and more intensity and get really nice and rich color like this. So you just get such a beautiful effect. Okay. So once we're done with this background, it's pretty much complete. What we're going to do is another technique, because my inks are reactive with water, okay? So you totally can react them. You can skip this technique if you don't want to do it. So I'm going to show you what it's going to look like, and you could be like, I don't really like that. Or you could go in and do the same technique with me, okay? So it's going to give you this sort of texture in the background. So if you like that, join in on this next part. If you don't like it, you get a little break. You get a little breather here. So yeah, you can do it if you want to, and you can skip it if you want to. But what I'm going to do is lay this down just right in front of me. Take a little bit of water. I like this distress sprayer from Tim because it gives you like either large droplets or smaller droplets. So, you can kind of play around with it. But if you have any spray bottle will work, and just lightly mist over top of the surface. And you're just going to spray until you're satisfied with how many droplets you have of water. Okay. And you'll see it's starting to react on the surface there. And it just gives you such a beautiful effect. You can see in this darker area, it reacts with those smaller ones and the larger drop, and just gives you such great texture on the surface. I love it. Oh, Jennifer says, use these stencils along with the ones from Hero and Conquer the Ninth. Yeah, that could be super cool. I saw Conquer the Ninth's kit, and it was just beautiful. So I know there's lots of like scenery in some of them, so it could be really cool to use them all together. And then next I'm going to go in with my heat tool and just go in and heat set this to let it dry. You could always set it off to the side and adhere everything together a little bit later if you want to as well, if you don't have a heat tool handy. But I'm guessing you probably have a heat tool handy because we did the stamping foam. Okay. And I just do that because I'm a little bit impatient, but it's going to dry really nicely, and then you get all that beautiful texture along with the blending. How fun is that? And you know what? This dark color is even a little bit darker than my sample, so you could get, you know, lots of shades with this ink pad. And then to finish it all off, we're going to go in here, and I'm just going to go in with a little bit of foam tape. We're down to the wire on that foam tape. And I'm just going to add it down onto the surface to pop it up off the card. Yes. Robin says, I can't believe this was all made with one color. Isn't it insane? That's why I love these water-based dye inks. Because with water-based dye inks, most of them are translucent, and so you can really layer it up, or you could keep it like one layer and just get a really light color. Okay? So there we go. We got that right onto the front of our card. I love this one because it's a pretty tonal background. So although it's got a lot of detail in there, it kind of doesn't draw your eye directly to it. And then you've got this nice focal point in the center. So it creates almost like a scene there with the cactus in the center. And then we're going to use the Hugs sentiment. I know Catherine was talking about this one in the unboxing. I think Hugs is absolutely hilarious with cactus. So I think it's a fun sentiment to use, but use whatever sentiment you guys want from the kit. There's lots of great sentiments in this set to use for all different occasions. And I'm just going to place this right down onto the surface. All right, so there's our second card all completed. I love how it looks. It's just so much fun and beautiful. And we got lots of different blending with the stencil. So you can create one scene with the stencil like this using just one ink pad. And then, of course, that fun stamping that we did with both the Lunar paste and our ink pads to get some dimension here. And with this first card, I think I used Viper and then I used Fake Plant, whereas on here I used Later Gator and then I used Viper. So different results for different ink pads used. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of a difference there, but pretty similar. I love how they look. So much fun. All right. I think Hugs is a great sentiment to send to a lot of people as well. I love making cards with Hugs because it's pretty, like you could send it to a friend if you just want to catch up, or you could send it to someone for a sympathy card, or just to brighten their day. So I love Hugs sentiments because they're pretty versatile for lots of different cards you can send. All right, should we move on to the next one? We might even have time for our fourth card today. I'm really not sure if we're going to get to it, but we might, which would be exciting. All right, for this next one, we're using the background stencil. Again, we're using that Sedona Scene Maker stencil. And here, we're gonna create a really great colorful background. So this one's more of like a scenic look, and this is gonna kind of be the focal point of the card. And then we're also using some Lunar paste to create that really fun blood moon. I love it. So we picked the red because it would work with the flowers and the moon area there, and I think it's just so much fun. Yes, Hugs is such a great one. It's just so easy to send to anyone. I love it. I love those kind of versatile sentiments where it could be just encouraging. I think those are sometimes the best ones to make because you can really send them to anyone to brighten their day. All right, so I'm gonna peel off the tape off these stencils, and we're just gonna clean them off so we can do a little cleaning sesh together before we move on to this next one, because you don't want brown ink on your card. So I'm just gonna peel these off. Lots of you guys saying you're super excited about this one. I love this card too. It was so much fun designing this stencil. We made a stencil a couple years ago. It was almost at the beginning of when my line with Ranger happened, which was almost 5 years ago now. And that one was called Scene Maker. And so that one has like grass and clouds and just so many things in it that you can make a scene with. I think it even has mountains and hills. And so that was sort of what inspired this one as well. But I wanted this one to have that sort of desert theme. I went out to California and Arizona, and lots of fun scenery over there. So that's kind of what inspired this and the whole theme of these sets. And so I wanted something that would create a really great scenic and beautiful Arizona look, or just desert look. It can really be anywhere. Okay, so we're just gonna make sure our stencils, make sure they're nice and dry before we move it into the next step, because you don't want that water hitting your card. Okay, so let's start off first. Before we even dive in with any of these stencils, we're going to start off just with our card panel. So here's our card panel, and then we're gonna grab out some colors. So what colors did I use here? Let's see. I used, where did it go now? Here. I gotta look for the colors I've already been using. So we're gonna use a little bit of No Diving for the sky. We're gonna use a little bit of Prom Queen, and then we've got a little bit of Guppy and Shooting Star. Really, actually, we could take Guppy out because these colors are gonna create a really beautiful blend together, and I'll show you guys why, okay? So just grab a yellow, a pink, or a blue. If you just are working with any inks will work here. Just, again, an ink that's great for blending. What did they do? So you can use the negatives of stencils as masks. We like to just include those so that in case if you want to like tape them over top of an image and mask it off, that's great. All right, so I'm gonna go in here, starting off with a little bit of yellow Shooting Star, and I'm just gonna go in and start blending this onto the surface. And again, use these domed blending foams. They are so great for applying down tons of color. One thing I love about these is I like blending brushes or these, but if I'm going for a really dark and solid effect, I like to use the foams. And if I want a little bit of a lighter effect, then I usually use like blending brushes. So these ones are just great for applying down a ton of color really quickly, right? That's what I love about it. Yes. Diana says cyan, magenta, and yellow. Yeah, these are gonna be great colors for mixing together. And like you'll see in 1 second, you're gonna get lots of different new colors in between. So moving into Prom Queen, we can go in with this pink color. And we're just going to blend this onto the surface. And I'm going to go in here and blend over top of that yellow so that we get a new color in between. So you're gonna sort of create an orange color there with this blend, which is so beautiful. All right, so just simply blending this down onto the surface. And then you can go back in with the yellow if you want to, and just go back and forth between the colors and really get such a nice smooth blend. So just go back into that pink and go up even a little bit more. And you're gonna get such a great blend in between there. And you get a new color, so that's a great orange in between, since they're translucent. When they lay on top of each other like that, you get such a great blend. Now, I don't even know why I'm focused so much on like the smoothness of the blend, but we're gonna be covering it up pretty much with some of these mountains. So don't worry too much if it's like a little bit streaky, but just try to get lots of color down onto the surface really is the goal of this. And then last but not least, I'm gonna actually go up a little bit more with that pink. And then we're gonna go in using a little bit of No Diving, which is this great blue color. It's one of my favorites from the line. And I'm just gonna go in here and blend that down and then overlap it a little bit with pink, which is gonna create a nice purple in between. Yes, these colors do blend together just beautifully. It makes, a great sunset color. But like I said, if you want to, like we showed in the last card, go in using a lighter hand, maybe blending brushes, and just a lighter pressure. And then you're going to get like a daytime sky, right? So you can really mix these colors in, do it lighter or darker, and create however you want. Okay, and then we're going to go in, if you want to make this look even a little bit darker, we included the shady too. Well, not included, but put it on the supply list. So if you have a dark gray at hand too, go in with a blending tool, and you can go in right at the top if you want to make it even look more like a nighttime sky, just to darken that top area out a little bit more. Creates a really fun blend. So check that out. All we needed is just lots of colors on top of the surface. Okay, so once we're done with that, then I'm going to go in You guys are so sweet. You all are saying you could watch me ink blend for hours. It's a fun time. I love ink blending, and it's great to just add lots of color down onto the surface. I like creating these type of backgrounds. It's so much fun to create your own look and backgrounds with inks and different stamping techniques. I like it almost better than using pattern paper and things like that. Okay, so next let's go in with some stencils here. I'm gonna bring in these two stencils from the set, and we'll do our stenciling. Now I'm gonna set this off to this corner so you guys can see exactly how it looks, so that when I'm doing it, you kind of know what part we're doing. All right? Yes, Shady is such a fun ink name. I love it. Naming the inks are just like, it's the best part, I'm telling you guys. It's so fun once all the inks are designed and the colors, you know, we figured out all the colors. The names are just too fun. Okay. Thanks, Lori. She says that everything that I'm doing is pretty attainable. Yeah. I like to do it in simple, like cards can kind of look a little bit difficult in the end, but all of them really just have like, you know, one or, you know, simple steps if you break them down, which is really nice. So I'm just going to go in here. We'll place this about here on the card. I would say 2/3 of the card is going to be these mountains, and then leave like 1/3 of room at the top. Okay. And then I'll go in using a bit of mint tape. I'm going to use this to mask off, and then I'll use the larger strips to tape this down and make sure it's held in place. Oh yeah, we got some snow coming tomorrow. If you guys are in Wisconsin, you know. It's supposed to be like, I think 8 to 10 inches, which is just crazy, of snow. So here we are making a nice scene with some cacti in the desert, and then I'm gonna be suffering tomorrow. All right. So we've got this down into the surface. Now for this mountain in the background, I'm gonna use brown to do this one. And then for the front one, we're going to use dark gray, shady, or like a black color, all right? Okay, so let's go in using a little bit of brown. This is the fun part of the class where it gets closer to the end. I had everything like organized in piles, and then once you start pulling everything out, it's like, where did I put that? But I'm gonna go in using a little bit of gur, and we're just going to go onto the surface and start blending down. Now, I didn't mask anything off because there's mountains and stuff in here that you could mask off if you want to at the beginning to like leave it white. But I find that using these colors like gur and shady are gonna cover up the colors anyways that you used, so it's no problem. So I'm just going over top here with a little bit of brown, and we're just going to blend right over top of that yellow. So super simple to do. And then I would say this is kind of like mid-tone. If you want to, you could go in and go even darker with the color, but I'd say this is pretty good. We want to make it look like it's kind of in the distance, so that's why I wouldn't do this layer super dark. That's why it's kind of a mid-tone. I like the brown color for it because it's a really great mid-tone, because the front layer, we want to keep the darkest, okay? So then this one's going to look like it's a little bit back more. Rebecca says, I think Gur might be her favorite name. This one's named after my dog, Gur and Woof. I have 2 dogs, so it was so funny at the beginning to name this one Gur. He likes to growl a lot, so. All right, so I'll lift this off, peel off the stencil, and you can see that really great mountain forming there. And it's not too dark and intense, which makes it look like it's a little bit further back. And then we'll bring in this next stencil, which we're going to place in the front, and we're just going to go a little bit further down than the mountains. So about here on the card. I'm not great at math, so I can't tell you what, like maybe 1/8 of the card, but we're going to lay that down with a little bit of tape, and then I'm going to cover up some of the open areas with some tape. Okay. And then again, we're going to do the same thing as we did earlier. So you could go in, I wonder what I used here. I think I used shady, but you could also use black. I usually use black too. Like you could go in with like archival or VersaFine or something like that to ink blend this. But I'm pretty sure that in the example I used shady. So that's what I'm going to do again. I love this one. The name is just too good. Shady is like a dark gray, almost black color, so that's why I really like it. And for this, again, for these cacti, they're a little bit more detailed, so I'm just gonna go in at the top here and just start off by just taking my blending tool, dabbing it into those stencils, and then sort of twisting it just a little bit to apply that color down. And you can see, yep, this is definitely what I used there. It's nice and dark, and it's going to give us a super rich color. Okay. And then again, over here, we're gonna do that dabbing technique. Yay, I'm so glad you guys are enjoying the class. And I think we're gonna have enough time for the last card. Catherine, let me know if I can go just a little bit over. It might be like 10 minutes over, I'm not quite sure. But at least I'll show you guys the technique for the next card so that you guys can sort of finish it on your own too if we don't have enough time. And then I'm going to just keep going in and tapping on some color. That sort of pouncing method will give you like a really nice dark and intense color too. So we'll just pounce the whole way across. There's not too much surface area to cover. You just want to get a nice dark, rich, saturated color for the front here. Oh, everyone's getting an invite to scrapbook.com. I would love to. Let's all go. We're all on a field trip. All right, so tap that on the surface. We got a nice, dark, rich, intense color there. And then we can lift this off of the surface and check that out. I love it. And like it's super easy to do too. You guys saw there was like 3 steps that we did, right? That background, and then you do each layer individually, and you just create such a beautiful background. I love it. And super easy to do this front area in neutrals like this. You could do it in different colors if you want to. And if you did do it in colors, like let's say you used like a green and you wanted the green to really pop, that's where the tops of the stencils come in. So like if I wanted to keep a section of the stencil white, all you need, or the background white, all you need to do is use this top part of the stencil. And there's mountains on top of the other one too. And you can mask them off and then you can stencil them afterwards. But I just did this with darker tones so that you didn't have to, you know, if the yellow changed the color a little bit, it doesn't really matter as much. Okay. Yeah, that's the color combo. Yep, Sarah, it's just 3 simple colors in the background there and then some neutrals on top. How fun is that? Okay, so now to like finish off the scene a little bit more, we're gonna add some birds and we're gonna add this beautiful sun or moon on there as well. And I'm not going to necessarily put this together, and I think you guys should probably wait till afterwards as well because we're going to let this dry a little bit. So once we're done with this, you guys can just check out the image and, you know kind of how to put the sentiment and things like that because we're not going to be able to put it on a card. Hey, Bethany. Good to see you here. Okay, so let's finish this one off. I'm going to just place this down on the front and center. I like to always adhere this down to my surface to make sure it's not moving. And then we're gonna go in here and start off with the birds. Yep, we're gonna get to the moon in just 1 second. And then I'm gonna use a little bit of shady. And for this one, I don't even need to hold it down or tape it down. I'm just gonna go in, hold this down in place. And we're just going to, again, sort of tap the color onto the surface, right through that stencil. And there we go. I love it. So much fun. And then we can go in and do the moon. Now for the moon, we're going to be using Lunar paste. So I'm just going to rip off all of the extra tape. And let's see. I'm going to just quickly clean the tape as well. Or sorry, clean the stencil. So just clean it off quickly before we move on to the Lunar paste here. Okay, and then I'm gonna do, so for this, a couple people had a couple questions, right? So, how do we do the sun and make it mask off with the mountains, right? Because this is cut out of there. So that's how we get that beautiful sun. And so to do that, we're going to use the mountain stencil, and this has the stencil at the bottom and the mask at the top. I'm gonna go in here and lay this over top of the surface. So we're going to mask off that mountain area, quickly add our tape down onto the surface to hold it in place. Okay, and then we can go in here and place the sun wherever we want it to. So where did I put the sun on the last? It's like right in between here. I'm gonna put it right about there. That's perfect. we'll have it kind of peeking out from behind those mountains there. If you want to too, you could just like, put it wherever you want in the sky. But I thought I would show this just to show how the masks work in the stencil so you guys aren't confused about that. So I'm gonna go in using a little bit of mint tape to hold it down. This stuff is a game changer. I love mint tape, but any tape will work here. I like that this one because it doesn't rip your cardstock, so it's like my fave. Okay, so let's go in with our lunar paste. So for this, we can do a similar thing like we did earlier where you apply it down with a blending sponge if you want to. You're gonna get tons of shine if you do it like, through the stencil like we did earlier. You're gonna get tons of shine, but you're not gonna get as much dimension, all right? But I wanted to show you guys another way to apply it down with the lunar paste with the palette knife and the scraper so that you guys can really see how much dimension you can get with lunar paste too, because you can use it through stencils and just like a normal paste and get tons of texture, all right? Oh, you guys are being so sweet. Lots of you guys are saying you love all the techniques and things from tonight's class, which I really appreciate. Okay, let's see. I left this here. It's dry now, but we're gonna go and use it again. And I'm just going to spread this right over top of the surface. So we're just going to place this down. I'm holding kind of the stencil down into place right here, just giving it some good pressure around the surface area, just to make sure that none of the paste leaks through. All right. And we're just gonna go in and spread it out. Now, you could just use the palette knife if you want to spread it out. It's doing a pretty good job at it. And honestly, that might be all we need. I was gonna go in, because you could use this scraper as well, and you could go in and sort of flatten it out, which the scraper is really nice to smooth things out. So if you want to, you can go over top of the surface. It took some off the surface there, so it really smooths it nicely. But what's great about this, which I didn't really show its full potential in today's class, but definitely check out YouTube videos, or I use it a lot on my Instagram too. But the awesome part about this scraper tool is that for large surface areas like a stencil, you can scrape it down the stencil and it just smooths out the whole thing rather than having to go in and be like trying to smooth it out like this. So for the paste tool set, I use this to sort of apply the color down. And if it's a large surface area, I go in with the scraper to scrape it out even more. All right. So let's set this off to the side now, and then we'll lift this stencil off. So check that out. We got that nice moon there. And then what's super cool is we can go in here, lift that off, and check it out. Now we got that masked off from the mountains there, and it looks like that moon is completely behind everything in the scene. So that's what's super cool about this stencil. That's why we included both the top and the bottom piece for both layers, so that you can do some really great masking with it too. So once this dries, it should take, I would say like an hour. We applied it pretty darn thick. It's even thicker than my sample is. Like, check out that amazing dimension in there. So I would give it like an hour or more, like just wait before you really touch it until it's completely dry. And then it will give such beautiful shine. Once it's dry, you can see that shine is so intense, right? So just set this off to the side. And then once you're done, you can apply a sentiment down, apply it onto your card base, and you're completely finished with it, okay? Sometimes I like touch things before they're completely dry. So just don't do that. Just set it off to the side. Have some patience, and then once it's completely dry in about a day, then I can't wait to see your guys' finished cards for that one. Okay, so let's just clean this off quickly. So when it comes to lunar paste, I'm just gonna pull off all the tape here. When it comes to lunar paste, I tend to clean it off pretty quickly off of stamps and stencils, like I was saying earlier, just because it dries pretty quick. So, and because it has so much texture, I just want my stencils to be nice and clean. Whereas inks, I tend to just leave them sitting with ink on it until the next time I come in my craft room. But with lunar paste, I tend to clean it off a little bit quicker. So I'm just gonna go in here with a cloth and just clean off the surface of my stencil. And it cleans off really easily. Like the lunar paste, when it's still wet, will clean off just beautifully with water. So don't worry about that. Just go in and wipe it all off. And there we go. How long do you have with the lunar paste in terms of drying on stencils? It just depends. If you apply it super thin, like we did earlier, like it'll dry pretty quickly, like very quickly actually. Whereas if you apply it thick like this, you've got quite a bit of time. I would say like, I don't know, I would clean it off pretty quickly, but I would say you at least have 10 minutes before it starts like kind of crusting on the surface there. Okay. Let's see, how are you guys doing? Should we move on to the next card? Thank you guys. So many of you guys are saying that this is a wonderful class. I'm having so much fun too. Once we get over that like initial like, oh my gosh, we're live kind of nerves, it's super fun to be here and teaching all of you guys and crafting along with you, which is so fun. The ink won't stain your stencils. Nope, the ink will come right off. Or my ink, at least, I can't speak for every ink on the market, but most will come off of the stencils because they're plastic. Okay. So this is the fourth card I included in here as a bonus, but good thing I did because I moved pretty fast and we're here. So kind of fun. But like I said, I apologize. I apologize in advance if I was a little bit fast, but you can always rewatch this too. So if you saw a technique that you didn't quite get the hang of it, just rewatch the video over and over, and then hopefully you guys can, you know, get the hang of it and understand the technique. And if you have any questions, I'll be here at the end to answer anything, but also I'll be in the chat as well. So if you have any questions there, be sure to ask them. Okay. Okay, so let's go in here and do this final card. This one is so much fun, okay? So for this one, I'm going to use my scoreboard for stripes. So we're going to go in here with this. This is the Score Buddy. You can use any sort of scoring tool that you guys have. And we're going to use the edge of our stamping foam. So I'm going to actually use the long edge of the stamping foam just because it's going to be really easy to sort of line everything up. But you can use sort of the edge here. I would use this edge because we're going to do it on a diagonal. So you need this surface area. Okay? So what I'm just gonna make sure it's nice and clean before we go in and do anything. And then we can go in and heat it up, okay? So anything that you guys wanna use, I wanna use the Score Buddy today because it's got these great stripes in it. So we're gonna get a really fun design on here. So if you guys have a scoring tool, which I'm sure most of you do, this is a really fun texture to be using. So anything around your craft room, but this is gonna give great stripes. So again, use your heat tool, go in, and we can heat this edge up. And the awesome part is the edge is going to give you this really beautiful stripe on your card. So don't be afraid to use the edges of your stamping foam because they're going to react the same exact way as the other sides of your stamping foam will. Okay? And then I'll just go in here, stamp it down, and then give it some good pressure. Like I'm just gonna press on the top here and kind of rock it back and forth, and you'll get that amazing texture in there. And you'll see, since it was a smaller surface area too, it transfers just beautifully. And you get just that amazing texture. How fun is that? And so I love doing sort of stripes on my card. Now with this one, I did a diagonal right in the center here. I love diagonal edges because it sort of gives you, you know, a different look to it, some interest. But if you want to do, you know, stripes all along the card, you totally could. There's lots of options with this one, okay? Oh yeah, I'm glad. Lots of you guys are saying that it's better to go a little bit fast and then be able to rewatch it because you get lots of info. That's sort of my mindset with it too. Like I love just, you know, giving you guys lots of techniques and info with it so that, you know, you can create these cards, you know, whether you keep up with the class or you do it after the fact, but also then you get lots of techniques you can reuse on other projects as well. Okay, now we gotta find the ink pads. Look around and find your ink pads again. So we're using Prom Queen for the first color here. I'm gonna go in here and I'm just going to take the ink pad again, light pressure, and just go across the surface of this in a swiping motion, not tapping like this, just go swipe across and you'll get all that beautiful texture. And I pressed a little bit harder, which gives you color in between the lines too, but the stripes that are kind of raised more will be a little bit darker. So just similar to this card here, you can still see those, but there's color everywhere. All right, I'm gonna go in here, lightly mist over top of the surface, and then I'm going to bring it in on the card. I'm going to tilt it, and I'm using a card base for this one. I'm gonna tilt it like this, a little bit upward, and then once we've got it lined up nicely, we can stamp it down. And so we're gonna do 3 of these stripes. So make room. If you wanna do the center stripe first, I'll put the card on screen again just so you guys can see. So we're gonna do pink, orange, and yellow. If you wanna do the center stripe first, then it could be really easy to help line it up. But how fun is that? Totally cool, and it just gives you a really unique texture, which I love. But again, play with anything in your craft room, and you can get some great effects. Okay, so I'm just gonna go in here, clean this off so it doesn't get on the back of our card, and then I'm also going to just wipe this off as well. Just using lots of water, but again, stamp cleaner will work too. And I saw a question on how long the image is gonna stay in the stamping foam. It really will stay until you heat it again. So I have some in my drawer that I just keep reusing over and over because I loved the design. So if you love it, just keep it in the edge, and you can always, use a different side of the stamping foam because there's lots of sides and edges to use. Next, I'm gonna go in using a little bit of Guppy, which is this nice orange color. And then I'm going to, again, swipe it on the surface, and we're just going to repeat the same stamping technique up the card 3 times so that we have these beautiful stripes. And then someone asked, do you have to spray it? You don't have to spray it, but I find that it helps transfer the ink a little bit more. So if you want to, test on the side of your cardstock to see if, what it looks like on a different piece of cardstock. And then you could see if you like it better with water or not. I found that I just liked the image better with water. It just gives you a more solid color. But if you don't spray it, you'll just get a lighter image. And if that's what you want, that's totally fine too. It just depends. For me, I love these bold, bright colors, so that's why I kind of spray it to get that really great saturation on your project. And then, last but not least, we'll go in here, wipe it off, and then we'll use a little bit of yellow. But you could use any colors here. I think blues and greens would be super cool too on that background, so really it's all up to your imagination. What colors you want to use, how you want to take these techniques. All right, we'll spray it down. Just a little mist of water. Really the water is only there to just help transfer it. So just a little bit goes a long way when it comes to spraying it down. I'll place it down onto the card and then give it some good pressure. And there we go. How fun is that? Such a cool technique to get those stripes. And of course, it's big enough for you to even do stripes like this too. So that's what I love about this large stamping foam. It covers the background really well. So that's why I love it. Mary said, I know you will say it until you heat it again, but will it keep the same impression each time or will it fade out? I'm almost positive it keeps the same impression. I've used ones that I've done like that and they've worked really well for me still. So I'm pretty darn sure it keeps the same impression. But yeah. Okay, so I'll just wipe that off. And I'm going to set that off to the side. And there we have our background. Now, if you want to, heat set this to dry it a little bit, because it's just a little bit wet from the stamping, from the mists of water that we gave it. So really nice and dry, and then we can sort of do our stamping and then put our card together. So for the stamping, we're gonna stamp down on our flower like this, okay? So we're gonna go in with the stamps that we used at the beginning. I was smart and I kept them on my acrylic blocks, but if you didn't, if you took them off, we're gonna do the same exact thing. So we're gonna stamp down this and then we'll have the flowers in the 3 same positions so that it's really easy to do the stamping. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to bring in one of my die cuts that we've cut out with the flowers that we've used the die set to cut out. I didn't show this in the class, but yes, you guys have this die set in your kit. So thank you to Spellbinders for doing this. Thank you so much. It's really great that they lined up their schedule and Ranger was aligned with their schedule, so we were able to get this done. I'm so excited that you guys have dies in your kit. So be sure to thank Spellbinders because that is absolutely so amazing that we were able to include these with the set. And right now, this set is completely exclusive to this. I don't even know if we have any plans of ever releasing it. So super cool that you guys have that as well. Okay. So for this one, I ended up using Viper for the leaves, which this is one of my favorite colors. It gives such a great olive tone, so it's a really great warm toned green. And it's gonna look beautiful with these warm pinks and yellow colors. Yes, a plaid with the A plaid with the side of the stamping foam would just be so beautiful. So I'm just going to get my head in there and line it up. You just want to look over top of your die cut to make sure that it lines up perfectly. That's why I love these clear stamps. And there we go. So we've got our leaves stamped out now. And then we're going to go in and do the floral. So for the flowers, we're going to go in using a little bit of yellow, which is that shooting star color. I really love that one. But again, any yellow will work. Any one of your colors that you have at home will work. And then I'm going to go in using a little bit of Prom Queen. I love that color name too. So much fun. And I'm just going to tap on some of that ink, doing that same rolling method that we've done earlier. And I always like to add the darker color kind of either on one side of the flower, or you could rock it around the edge of the flower. But especially when it's like a bloom like this, I always like to do it on the edge that touches the greenery. That's where I like to make it the darkest. And then same thing with this. We're going to rotate it and line it up just by looking through the stamp. So just look right through your stamp to make sure you're going to get a great stamped image. You guys are just seeing the top of my head there, but just look through your stamp and make sure you guys have it really nicely lined up there. And there we have our beautiful stamped impression. So much fun. And of course, if you want to make this easier, I think we put it as optional in the supply kit, but if you have a Misty stamping tool or any sort of stamp positioning tool, that would work really great with this set as well. And if you want to, like, I know there's some techniques. I know Jennifer shows some really cool things where maybe you die cut this out of cardstock and then you have like a jig in your Misty that you place it in and you keep the stamps in place to place them on. That could be a really great way to make sure that this is lined up beautifully, but also create several at a time if you want to. So lots of different options for that. And then there was a little center. There's a circle. Oh, here we go. I was like, where did I put that? The tiniest little stamp in the set. Don't want to lose that one. And I'm going to stamp it in some Prom Queen ink, which is super nice and a rich color. And I'll just stamp it right in the center. How fun. Okay. So love that. Love how it looks. And then super simple. All we need to do is go in. I'm going to use some tape runner. Usually I would use foam tape, but since we're running so low, I'm just going to go in with some tape runner. And we'll just add it on the back of our florals and place it right down. How fun is that? I love it. And I love that little bit of a white border around the image too, because it makes it stand out really nicely from the colorful background. And then I have this cheers sentiment. And I'm just going to like follow the edge of this stamping to place down the sentiment. That's what's so fun about the diagonal is you can kind of play on the diagonal to add sentiments or things like that. It just looks so beautiful. I know lots of you guys are requesting the mini ink cubes. Thank you for doing that. So Ranger definitely knows that you guys want those in your collection. So we'll have to look into doing mini ink cubes because I know lots of you guys have requested it during today's crop, which is so awesome. Someone said, how many ink colors do you have in your line? And I'm going to be completely honest and say that I don't really know. It's in the like 20s, I'm pretty sure. So it's pretty easy to get them and have a nice complete collection. We add colors sporadically, so it's grown since the last time I knew the number, but maybe Ranger could answer that one and throw it in the chat. All right. So there's the last card that we created. I think this one is so much fun. I wanted to include it as a bonus just because, like I said, I didn't really get to touch on each tool individually as like, whoa, you know, you could do 16 different things with this. I hope I gave you lots of information though. And then of course, use this as your jumping off point. I hope you guys learned tons of techniques during today's class. But if you look on YouTube, there's going to be techniques for using stamping foam. There's going to be techniques for using lunar paste. So look at my videos, look at other creators. There's lots of people showing some amazing techniques with these products. So if you want to see how to use more, the things that are in this kit a little bit more in more ways, that's a super fun way to do so. There's tons of videos online. So thank you guys so much for stopping here. Now I'm going to turn it back to me, and we have about 10 minutes here. So if you guys have any questions you want to ask before I jump off and you guys go see Gina and Catherine, so let me know in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining. I see lots of your sweet comments coming through. Thank you so much for joining me tonight as we craft. This is always such an event, such an amazing event to be a part of. I was a part of it last time, and I'm absolutely thrilled that Catherine asked me back here. It's so much fun. You guys are all such a sweet community. Like, it really is so amazing, all of the supportive members that are in here. I can't wait to see what you guys create in the gallery and share all of your cards. And I think I'll hold off on my comments, but I'll be commenting on them on Sunday after the event is over. So I can't wait to see everything you guys create. And then, of course, you know, keep sharing and keep taking these classes. It's so amazing, all of the awesome companies and creators that are in here that are sharing these beautiful classes that have so many amazing techniques in them. Okay, let's see. Are there any questions? Can you cut down the blocks? Can you cut down the stamping foam blocks? I probably wouldn't. They're super thick, so I don't know if I would cut through those. You could try, but I would say it's probably not going to be the best idea. We have a couple of different shapes. So we have circles and we have hearts, and then we also have a larger foam and then a smaller one as well. Amanda says, question, who is Ranger? Ranger is the company that I work for. They're Ranger Inc., and they're an amazing manufacturer. So if you want to see more of their products, you can go to rangerinc.com, I believe. And they've got lots of different amazing product lines and some great signature designers there. So you'll see my line there, but you'll see some amazing other creators like Tim Holtz, Dina Wakely, Diane Reevely, and Wendy Vecchi's line as well. They've got inks, pastes, papers, you name it. Like, they got a lot of stuff over there. All right, let's see. Someone said, yes, you can cut them down. So maybe if you use like an X-Acto knife and go really slowly, you can get through each layer and get a nice straight cut. All right. Someone said, see, Simon, we don't bite. See, I wasn't scared because you guys are mean at all. It's just the concept of going live is always just absolutely terrifying, no matter how many times you've done it. And I also haven't done it since last year, because lately I've been doing just videos and doing them premieres. So it's been a while. So that's why I was a little bit nervous at the beginning more than usual. But you guys are amazing. So thank you so much. Any sneak peeks for future creations by me? Well, I do have something. Maybe I could share it. I'm not going to share a sneak peek, but I'll talk about it a little bit. So if you guys loved the Lunar paste, in 1 to 2 months, I would say probably give us 2 months, we're going to have another product out that is so amazing. It's similar to Lunar paste. It's going to be like, I always call it Lunar paste's twin sister. So it's a similar consistency, but it's going to have lots of different characteristics to the paste, which is going to be absolutely amazing. There's lots of new opportunities with that. So of course, more colors of Lunar paste are coming. That is going to stay in the line because it's so amazing and shiny and beautiful. But there's a new one coming, and it's a really cool one. Like, you thought Lunar paste was versatile, you can do like a million and more things with this next thing that's coming out as well. So I'm very excited about it. Yeah, like I said, give us, I'd say 2 months, but it might be more than that. You never know. Sometimes there are issues with manufacturing and we want to make sure it's perfect before it comes out. Yes, yeah, live's a little bit scary, but it's fun. Once you kind of get into it, it's good. All right, I can see all your comments, so I'm just reading them. That's why I'm kind of looking downwards, but yes, so many fun things coming out soon. So we'll continue to have releases throughout the year. There are more stamp releases and things like that coming soon, and more dies from Spellbinders. And yeah, it's not glitter, but good guess. It's not glitter paste. I wouldn't be as hyped about that. I like glitter, but I'm kind of scared of it. But this one it's a cool product. I don't think you're gonna guess what it is, but it's a fun one. Okay. How often do I get to personally craft? Kimberly, that's a good question. Not super often. I would say, like, usually I turn on the camera to craft as I'm doing it. When I'm testing products, I get to personally craft, and I do that quite often. So like with the thing that I was just talking about, I tested that on a million different backgrounds to see what's good, what we need to change about it, and things like that. But I don't necessarily personally just craft by myself without a camera on or without testing products or something. But it's almost every day. It's almost every day. So that's why I usually don't get time in between to do personal crafting. Jen says, don't be scared of glitter. Glitter is terrifying. I like it in paste though a little bit more because it's not as scary because it's contained. It's in a medium, but yeah. Something more metallic. It is metallic. It's not, I wouldn't say it's more metallic, but it is metallic. Yeah. All right. It's not sprays either. Good guess. You guys have some good guesses, but I don't think you're gonna get it. And I'm not necessarily gonna say it yet because even if I say it, there needs to be a demonstration with it in order for you guys to fully understand it. So, yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. Someone just said, I just followed you on Instagram. So if you guys want to follow me, that's a good point. I probably should mention that. If you want to follow me on YouTube, it's just Simon Hurley, same way you guys see it spelled in this group. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you could search up Simon Hurley and it'll probably come up. But it is Inklips, which is INKLIPSE. And then you can find me on Facebook and things like that as well. But I'm mainly on YouTube and Instagram. Can you see my studio? You can see it from back here. I can't necessarily pick up the camera and show you guys, but maybe I'll do a tour pretty soon. Okay, I'm gonna answer a few more questions and then I'll probably be done so that you guys can talk to Gina and Catherine. If you wanted to mix paste and ink with stenciling, would you get the matching ink for the paste or a slightly different shade ink? If you wanted to mix. So if you use a reinker, you're going to need to add quite a bit of that reinker to get it to the same intensity. So when it comes to Lunar pastes, there's a paste. So this one's called Game Over. In my line, there's a paste and an ink that coordinates. So this is the Game Over ink pad, and this is the Game Over Lunar paste. We made it so that it matches perfectly, so you don't need to guess color mixing and things like that. And also, the difference between a white pearl mixed in with a reinker, these Lunar paste, we have quite a few colors now. Again, I don't know off the top of my head, but with the Lunar paste, we mix in different pearl powders. So there's actually a dark red pearl powder inside of this. So it gives you that red shine rather than having a white pearl powder with the colorant. Then it would just give you kind of a white shine with a tint, right? So this is giving you the colored shine, which I really love. So that's the difference between Lunar paste and just tinting a white paste. Yep, Darlene just asked, is there a silver Lunar paste? There is, it's called Silver Lining. All right. Everyone's talking about glitter now. That's so funny. Okay. Let's see. I think that we're pretty much done. Oh, looks like 19 is on the back counter. Well, you guys are right then. Oh, I think there's 2 extra because I don't think I have the metallics up there. So 21, I would say right now. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really had so much fun. I hope I answered lots of your questions at the end here. If I didn't see one of them, be sure to leave it in the chat in the group, and I'll be sure to answer it over there as well. There are 24 Lunar pastes. Ranger to the rescue. Thank you, Patty. So there's 24 Lunar pastes in the line right now, and we're adding a couple more as well throughout the year. So 24. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Someone said, will there be more dies throughout the year too? Yes. There will be more dies to coordinate with the stamps and also dies on their own. Amanda asked, when is the next release? This is the last question I'm going to ask, or answer. When is the next release? So the last release was on March 17th. The next release will probably be sometime in May. We haven't nailed down a certain date yet, but sometime in May. Oh, never mind. There are 21 Lunar pastes. Okay, we were right. There are 21. All right, thank you guys so much for stopping by tonight. I had an absolute blast crafting along with you, and I cannot wait to continue watching the rest of this event. It's always so fun as a teacher to be able to jump in the classes as well and see what everyone else is creating. There are some amazing companies and creators that are joining you guys to create some amazing cards and share some awesome techniques. Thank you again to Catherine and the whole SCT team as well for having me participate in this event. I so appreciate it. It was tons of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your night.